He dreams every day. He imagines success in vivid detail. He sees himself building something meaningful. He sees financial freedom. He sees respect. He sees a life that feels powerful and independent. His ambition is real. It is not shallow. It is not temporary. It burns quietly inside him. Yet when the moment comes to act, something shifts. He delays. He scrolls through his phone. He tells himself he will begin tomorrow. From the outside, people label him as lazy. They assume he lacks discipline. They assume he does not want success badly enough. Over time, he begins to accept that label. He calls himself lazy before anyone else can. But the psychology beneath this pattern is far more complex. Ambition lives in imagination. Action lives in emotional regulation. A person can have extraordinary dreams and still feel paralyzed when facing the first step. Because action does not require only desire. It requires emotional safety. For many ambitious people, starting means exposure. It means entering a space where they might fail publicly. It means discovering their limits. It means risking the possibility that their talent may not match their vision. That realization feels threatening. The mind protects itself. Instead of starting imperfectly, the person waits for the perfect mood, the perfect strategy, the perfect version of themselves. They confuse preparation with progress. They collect information instead of taking risks. Night, they feel guilt. Heavy guilt. They ask themselves why they cannot move. They compare themselves to others who seem consistent and driven. The gap between who they are and who they want to become grows wider. This gap creates shame. And shame reduces energy. What appears as laziness is often fear mixed with self-judgment. It is the nervous system choosing safety over uncertainty. It is not a lack of ambition. It is a fear of what ambition demands. The person is not weak. The person is protecting something fragile inside. There is a sentence many ambitious yet inactive people repeat. I know I could do more. On the surface, this sounds confident. Underneath, it is protective. As long as they do not fully try, they never have to fully know their limits. If they fail without trying, they can blame effort. If they fail after giving everything, they must confront their ability. That confrontation feels dangerous. Many of these individuals grew up being praised for potential instead of resilience. They were told they were intelligent. They were told they were talented. They were told they had a bright future. However, they were not taught how to process failure. They were not taught how to tolerate being average while learning something new. They were not shown that struggle is part of growth. As a result, their identity became attached to being capable. When effort threatens that identity, avoidance begins. They aim high. Their standards are intense. Yet their execution is inconsistent. This contradiction creates internal conflict. They feel ambitious and inadequate at the same time. Perfection becomes a shield. If the plan is not flawless, they delay. If the timing is not ideal, they postpone. If they do not feel completely ready, they wait. Waiting feels safer than risking disappointment. Behind this pattern is fear of exposure. Trying seriously means being seen struggling. It means accepting visible imperfection. It means allowing others to witness the learning process. For someone who equates worth with performance, that vulnerability feels intolerable. They protect their image by limiting effort. They maintain the story that they could succeed if they truly committed. That story keeps hope alive while avoiding risk. But over time, the cost becomes heavy. Unrealized ambition turns into quiet regret, and regret slowly transforms into self-doubt. Not every ambitious and inactive person is afraid of failure. Some are simply exhausted. Their exhaustion is emotional, not physical. They wake up already carrying pressure. Pressure to succeed. Pressure to prove themselves. Pressure to close the gap between their current life and their imagined future. This constant pressure activates stress responses in the body. The mind remains in comparison mode. Social media intensifies it. Every achievement posted by someone else feels like evidence of falling behind. Chronic comparison drains motivation. When ambition is fueled by insecurity rather than inspiration, it becomes heavy. The person does not chase success because it excites them. They chase it because they feel incomplete without it. That internal message is exhausting. If every goal is tied to self-worth, failure becomes catastrophic. Even small setbacks feel like confirmation of inadequacy. Over time, the nervous system seeks relief. Procrastination becomes relief. Distraction becomes relief. Avoidance becomes temporary emotional comfort. This is not laziness. It is self-preservation. The body slows down because it cannot sustain constant internal criticism. Imagine living with an inner voice that says, "You are behind. You are wasting time. You are not enough." That voice does not motivate. It depletes. Ambition that grows from shame collapses under pressure. Ambition that grows from curiosity expands naturally. Many people who appear lazy are actually overwhelmed by unrealistic expectations and harsh self-judgment. They need compassion more than discipline. They need emotional recovery more than productivity systems. Until the internal environment becomes supportive, external progress remains inconsistent. Energy returns when self-criticism softens. Movement begins when the mind feels safe. Real change begins with emotional safety. When a person understands that their worth is not dependent on performance, something shifts internally. Failure becomes information instead of identity. Effort becomes practice instead of proof. This shift reduces fear. The ambitious person who once felt stuck begins taking smaller steps. Not dramatic steps. Not perfect steps. Small, consistent actions. 0.5 minutes of focused work. 0.1 uncomfortable conversation. 0.1 completed task instead of 10 planned ones. Consistency grows when shame decreases. When the internal voice becomes supportive, energy increases. The person no longer acts to escape inadequacy. They act to explore potential. There is a psychological principle at work here. The nervous system moves toward growth when it feels secure. Safety allows experimentation. Experimentation builds competence. Competence builds confidence. Confidence is not built through imagination. It is built through repeated evidence of effort. The individual who once labeled themselves as lazy realizes a powerful truth. They were never incapable. They were afraid of losing identity. They were overwhelmed by pressure. They were protecting themselves from humiliation. Once protection is no longer necessary, movement becomes natural. Ambition and action finally align. The person still feels fear. However, fear no longer controls behavior. They understand that discomfort is part of growth, not a signal of danger. Progress becomes steady, not because motivation suddenly appears every day, but because emotional resilience replaces avoidance. The ambitious person learns that discipline is not forced aggression against the self. It is respectful commitment to growth. And that is when the label of lazy disappears, not because the dreams changed, but because the relationship with the self changed. And when that relationship becomes healthy, ambition finally becomes movement.